Imagine living most of your life feeling different, not broken, not lost, just out of sync with the world. As if there's a frequency everyone else hears, but for some reason, you're tuned into something else. People laugh, connect, rush through life chasing what they're told to want, but you linger. You question. You feel things in places others don't even notice. And so you grow up thinking something's wrong with you. You wonder if maybe you missed the memo. If maybe you're too sensitive, too intense, too deep for your own good. But let me offer you a different perspective. What if that dissonance you feel isn't a defect, but a sign? What if it's not confusion, but the echo of genius trying to wake you up? Carl Jung once said that what we resist in ourselves often points toward what we most need to embrace. Genius doesn't always arrive in grand gestures or groundbreaking inventions. Sometimes, it comes wrapped in silence, in observation, in the way your thoughts stretch into dimensions most people don't even know exist. You don't need applause to be brilliant. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. The most radiant minds often go unnoticed because they don't seek attention, they seek truth. And truth isn't always popular. So if you've ever felt other, if you've walked through life carrying a depth you didn't know how to explain, this is for you, because maybe, just maybe, you've had a hidden genius within you all along, and the signs have been there, quietly calling you home. Let's start with the first. You were never the kind to just accept things as they are. Even as a child, you'd stare at the ceiling long after everyone else had fallen asleep, asking questions the world wasn't ready to answer. Why do people lie when they say they love you? Why do we have to go to war to prove strength? Why are we taught to hide what we feel instead of heal it? The world gave you rules, but you held them up to the light, turned them in your hands like fragile glass, trying to find the cracks. That isn't rebellion, that's insight. And it's one of the clearest signs that something in you is deeply, quietly brilliant. You weren't born to blindly follow. You were born to see through, to dismantle, to understand what hides beneath the surface. Carl Jung believed that the journey to individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, begins with asking questions others are too afraid to speak aloud. And that's what you've always done. You've challenged dogma. You've refused to settle for easy answers. You don't swallow beliefs just because they're wrapped in tradition or soaked in fear. You know that truth doesn't live in the loudest voice. It lives in the whisper beneath it, the quiet realization that what you were told may not be the whole story. You ask, why? Not to annoy, not to disrupt, but because you feel there's more, and there is. Your questions are doorways. Each one opens you to a deeper layer of consciousness. And while others may label you as overthinking or difficult, the truth is, you're one of the few who are actually thinking. In a world drowning in noise, your curiosity is revolutionary. That hunger you feel to understand, to know, to unearth what's hidden, it's not weakness, it's wisdom growing roots. So if you've ever felt out of place because you ask too much, feel too deeply, or wonder too often, remember this: those aren't flaws, those are signs. Signs that your genius isn't gone, it's just beginning to awaken. You walk into rooms and feel like you're speaking a language no one else understands. Not because you're being obscure, not because you're trying to be different, but because the way you see the world doesn't match the script others are following. You try to explain your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, but the words land wrong. People tilt their heads, change the subject, laugh nervously. So over time you pull back. You learn to edit yourself, soften your edges, wear a version of yourself that's easier to digest. And yet, inside there's a storm of clarity, complexity, and connection begging to be known. That ache of being misunderstood? It's not proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're ahead of your time. Carl Jung spoke of the tension between the individual and the collective shadow, the deep resistance society has toward those who challenge its norms, question its comfort, and live by a different rhythm. And if you've always felt like an outsider, it may be because you are one, but not in the way they think. You're not an outsider because you don't belong. You're an outsider because you were born to see what others avoid. You've always sensed things others ignore, felt energy shift when no one else noticed, detected dishonesty when everyone smiled. Your sensitivity isn't confusion, it's precision. You don't fit in because you're not meant to disappear into the crowd. You're meant to awaken something the crowd forgot. Feeling misunderstood isn't a curse. It's a calling. It means you're still in touch with something most people buried long ago, their own essence. You're still listening to the inner world they've silenced. So if your voice shakes when you speak your truth, if you leave conversations feeling more alone than when you entered, know this: your words are seeds. And while not everyone will water them, someone will. Not everyone will get you, but the right ones will feel you before you even speak. You were never meant to dim yourself to fit. You were meant to burn so brightly that others remember they have a light too. Being misunderstood is lonely, yes. But it's also one of the clearest signs that a hidden genius is alive inside you. You've never been satisfied with surface-level anything. Conversations that stay in the weather or the news drain you. Small talk feels like a cage. Because while others laugh, scroll, and entertain themselves through the day, you're somewhere else entirely trying to decipher what it all means, why people hurt each other, why love fades, why we hide who we are, just to be liked. This obsession with meaning, it isn't heaviness, it's depth, and it's one of the brightest markers of a mind that refuses to go numb. Carl Jung believed that the search for meaning is what transforms suffering into wisdom, and you know that intimately. You don't just experience pain, you try to understand it. You don't just move on from heartbreak, you mine it for lessons. You turn every ending into a new beginning, every scar into a symbol. Because somewhere deep inside, you believe life isn't random. That even in chaos there's a thread, a lesson, a pattern, a truth trying to be revealed. And you chase it, even when it exhausts you. Even when others tell you to just let it go. But you can't. Not because you're dramatic. Not because you're stuck. But because you were built to decode life's deeper language. While others are satisfied with distraction, you're haunted by questions. Not the kind with easy answers, but the kind that stretch your soul. Why am I here? What am I here to do? What part of me have I not yet met? You don't want meaning handed to you. You want to create it, shape it, live it. You're not chasing happiness. You're chasing purpose, and that makes you different. But it also makes you powerful. In a culture that confuses noise with truth, your hunger for depth is rare. It's sacred. It means you're not afraid of the dark. You're willing to walk through it, lantern in hand, searching for something real. And that is the mark of someone extraordinary. So if you've ever been told to stop overthinking or to just enjoy life, smile gently. Not because they're wrong, but because you know something they don't. A life without meaning isn't life at all. It's imitation. And you, even in your quiet search, are already living what others don't dare to ask. That's not just beautiful, that's genius. Your imagination doesn't just visit ideas, it lives in them. While others are busy planning what's for dinner or what show to binge next, you're somewhere else entirely lost in a silent film only you can see. You craft conversations before they happen, build entire realities in your mind, play out outcomes to scenarios no one else is even aware of. You're not just thinking, you're seeing, feeling, exploring. And that isn't daydreaming, that's vision. It's the quiet theater of genius unfolding beneath the surface of ordinary life. Carl Jung believed the unconscious isn't just a basement of repressed memories, it's a vast, mysterious sea of potential, insight, and creativity. And you, without realizing it, dip into that ocean daily. You hear symbols in dreams. You see metaphors in heartbreak. You write stories in silence. And while the world outside moves quickly task to task, screen to screen, you're still inside, shaping meaning, making sense of things through art, imagination, and reflection. But here's the part most people miss. Your inner world isn't an escape. It's a compass. It points you toward truths others can't see yet. It's why you often feel out of place in fast-paced environments. Your mind doesn't work in checklists, it works in spirals, connections, revelations. That's not weakness. That's a mark of depth. And yes, it can be overwhelming. Your emotions run deep. Your thoughts echo long after a moment has passed. But it's also beautiful because that's where your real power lives. So if you've ever felt like you think too much, like you feel the world on a frequency no one else hears, know this. That intensity, that inner fire, it's not a flaw. It's a portal. And through it, you've already been accessing realms of genius most people never touch. Don't let a fast-moving world convince you your depth is a delay. It's not. It's evolution. One moment of your stillness can reveal what others miss in a lifetime of motion. There's a reason repetitive tasks drain you. It's not because you're lazy, it's because your mind wasn't designed for autopilot. You weren't made to simply execute routines, punch clocks, or color inside the lines. You crave something else, something that stretches you, challenges you, lights a fire in the space between your thoughts. The mundane doesn't just bore you, it suffocates you. Because while others can find comfort in sameness, you need meaning. You need movement, not physical, but mental, emotional, spiritual. Your soul was wired to grow. Carl Jung believed that living without purpose leads to neurosis, and you felt that tug. That ache when your days feel flat, when you're asked to perform a role that doesn't match your inner truth. It's not that you can't do it, it's that doing it costs you something invisible, your spirit, your spark. And when that begins to fade, you don't feel tired, you feel empty. That's not dysfunction. That's intelligence refusing to settle. Society has a name for people like you. They call you restless, unfocused, difficult. But what they're really saying is, you can't be easily boxed, and that makes you inconvenient. But let me tell you something, they've confused your hunger for more with weakness. In truth, it's your greatest strength. Because while others are content to check boxes, you're looking for the why behind every action. You want to know that what you're doing matters, that it aligns, that it awakens something real inside of you. And when it doesn't, you disengage not out of defiance, but out of integrity. This world wasn't built for minds like yours. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're early, ahead, intuitively aware that there's more to life than repetition and reward. So the next time someone labels your resistance to routine as laziness, smile. Not because they're right, but because you finally realize they never understood what you were built for. You're not misaligned with success, you're just allergic to mediocrity. And that quietly, powerfully is one of the clearest signs of hidden genius. People talk about growth like it's a sunrise, gentle, beautiful, easy. But you know better. Your growth came through storms, through nights that didn't end at morning, through silence so loud it made your bones ache. You didn't just survive pain, you walked into it, sat with it, let it unmake you. And in that unmaking, something deeper was born. Insight, compassion, strength that doesn't roar but hums beneath the surface, steady and unwavering. Genius isn't born in comfort, it's shaped in the shadows. And you've lived there long enough to speak its language fluently. Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You've done that. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not all at once, but you've looked your pain in the eye and asked it what it came to teach you. Most people run from their wounds. You stayed, you listened, and because of that, you now see what others miss. You see behind smiles, you hear the meaning behind the words. You've become the kind of person who carries light, but only because you dared to confront your own darkness first. Breakdowns weren't the end for you. They were doorways, moments that shattered the illusions you were told to believe about love, about success, about who you're supposed to be. And in the ruins, you started building something real, a deeper understanding of yourself, a deeper respect for your truth. You stopped trying to be impressive and started trying to be whole. That shift? That's genius. It doesn't wear medals, it wears scars. And if the world can't see that, it's because they're still waiting for brilliance to come dressed in perfection. But your brilliance doesn't spark, light burns. And that fire was lit the moment you chose to stop hiding your wounds and started using them as fuel. You didn't just go through pain, you grew through it. And that kind of transformation? That's not weakness. That's alchemy. You walk into a room, and without saying a word, you feel everything. The weight behind a forced smile, the sadness hiding beneath someone's silence. The unspoken tension no one's naming but everyone's breathing. Most people hear words, you hear energy. You read between the lines not because you're trying to, but because you can't not. That's your radar. That's your gift. And it's one of the clearest signs that your genius runs deep. Sensitivity in a world that numbs itself is a form of rebellion. It takes strength to open your chest to the sorrow of others, to hold emotions that were never yours, and still manage to walk forward without letting them bury you. Carl Jung believed that empathy was not just emotional, it was archetypal, a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, the self and the other. And you've become that bridge. You're not just aware of your own wounds. You sense the ones people haven't even named yet. They might call you too much, too emotional, too intense. But that's because they've mistaken sensitivity for fragility. You are not fragile, you're perceptive. You know how to sit in someone's pain without rushing to fix it. You know how to listen without judgment, to love without control, to understand without needing the full story. That's not softness. That's skill. And it comes at a cost most people are not willing to pay. But you have. You've likely spent years feeling like an emotional sponge, carrying what others couldn't, tuning into pain you didn't cause, wondering if something was wrong with you because the world felt so loud. But it wasn't wrong, it was rare. You weren't broken, you were tuned in. And while it's true that your empathy can leave you drained, it also makes you magnetic. People come to you because they feel safe. Not because you solve their problems, but because you see them fully. And in a world where most people feel invisible, that's a miracle. So don't dim that light. Don't toughen up just to make others comfortable. Your ability to feel is not a flaw. It's a frequency, and it's tuned to truth. That depth of emotion, that intuitive compassion, that's not just kindness, it's intelligence in its most human form. There are moments, maybe more than you admit, where you go completely still in a room full of noise. Your body is present, but your mind is somewhere else, far beyond the conversation, far beyond the physical space. Someone calls your name, and you blink, returning like a diver surfacing from the deep. It's not that you're distracted, you're somewhere. Inside a thought, a memory, an idea unfolding like smoke in slow motion. Most people call it daydreaming, but you know better. It's not escape, it's exploration. Carl Jung saw fantasy not as childish or wasteful, but as a bridge to the self, a portal into the unconscious. And you've walked that bridge more times than you can count. You imagine conversations before they happen. You untangle emotional knots in your mind before anyone even knows they're there. You build futures that may never arrive, but still teach you who you are. You don't get lost in thought, you find yourself there. It's why the world can feel too fast, too shallow, too loud. You're not wired for constant motion. You're wired for immersion. You'd rather wander through one meaningful question than rush through 100 empty answers. And while others may label you as zoned out or unfocused, what they're witnessing is something they can't recognize: someone in communion with their own mind, someone mid-conversation with the soul. Thought is not your distraction, it's your domain. And inside that quiet realm, you've built entire universes, stories, visions, understandings. You've practiced empathy without speaking, solved problems without asking, dreamed without even closing your eyes. That's not a glitch. That's genius stretching its wings in silence. So don't apologize for drifting. Don't shame yourself for being in your head. That's where your brilliance breathes. It's not that you don't see the world, it's that you see it differently. And that difference is sacred. Let them rush. You were never meant to be in a race. You were meant to be in a revelation. You build. Even when no one's watching. Even when no one will ever see. While others scroll, chase, consume, you're creating. Not because you want attention, but because something inside you needs to come alive. You draw on napkins. You write lines in the Notes app at midnight. You invent systems, solve puzzles, Reimagine the world in ways that seem invisible to most. That impulse, that quiet urge to shape something from nothing, that's not a hobby. That's the fingerprint of inner brilliance. Carl Jung believed the creative act wasn't just artistic, it was psychological. A way the unconscious speaks through us, moves through us, teaches us. And you feel that, even if you don't say it aloud. When you write, paint, hum, sketch, imagine, or dream, you're not just passing time. You're speaking a language your soul has always known. It's not always pretty. It's not always polished. But it's yours. And that authenticity, that need to express more than impress, is rare. You may not have shared your work. Maybe it lives in journals, on hard drives, in fragments tucked between to-do lists. But even in secret, it breathes. Because real creation isn't about audience, it's about alignment. And every time you let something out of your head and into the world, you're returning to who you really are. You're not trying to be a genius. You just can't not create. And that is what makes you one. You solve problems for fun. You design things no one asked for. You find beauty where others see routine. That's not boredom, it's brilliance looking for form. And even when you doubt yourself, even when you say, it's nothing, or it's not good enough, something inside you still builds. That's not an accident, that's a calling. So the next time you create something and feel the urge to dismiss it, don't. Whether it's a single sentence or a secret melody, it matters, because it came from you, and that alone means it carries truth. You don't need a title or a platform to be a creator. You already are one. The genius isn't waiting for a stage, it's already moving through your hands, your thoughts, your heartbeat. Let it. You see the unspoken before it's said. You sense the shift in a room before anyone names it. You can predict how things will unfold, not because you're psychic, but because you listen differently. You notice the tremor in someone's voice, the rhythm in their habits, the echo of something left unsaid. Most people hear words, you hear truth hiding between them. And that sensitivity to patterns isn't coincidence, it's consciousness in motion. Carl Jung called it synchronicity, the meaningful connections between seemingly unrelated events. Not logic, not randomness, but a deeper order quietly revealing itself. And you've always felt that order. In how certain people show up when you're at a crossroads. In how your thoughts are mirrored by the world around you. In how every heartbreak, every encounter, every strange coincidence felt like it was trying to tell you something. That's not superstition. That's your awareness, speaking a language most people have forgotten how to hear. You connect ideas that don't belong together, at least not at first glance. You take something you read in childhood and tie it to a conversation you had yesterday. You recognize emotional patterns like constellation shapes made out of scattered stars. And while others might call it overanalyzing, you know better. This isn't overthinking, this is deep seeing. It's why you can walk into a situation and feel like you already understand it. Why your gut speaks louder than anyone's advice. You've trained yourself intuitively, unconsciously to pay attention to what most people overlook. And because of that, your decisions seem guided, your timing uncanny, your perspective hard to explain but impossible to deny. This isn't about being right, it's about being attuned. It's about noticing what matters before it becomes obvious. And yes, sometimes it makes you feel alone, like you're seeing in color, while others insist the world is black and white. But don't shrink your vision. Don't dull your perception to blend in. That ability to spot what's hidden is not strange, it's sacred. And it's one of the clearest markers of a genius the world hasn't caught up to yet. There's a quiet room in your soul that feels more honest than any crowd ever could. While the world chases noise, likes, followers, praise, you crave space, not because you hate people, but because you love truth. And you know that truth rarely speaks over applause. It whispers, it waits, and it only comes when things get quiet enough for you to actually hear it. You're not lonely, you're aligned. Alone doesn't mean empty for you, it means undistracted. It means you get to be your full self without performing, without smiling when you don't feel like it, without translating your depth for people who only want the headline. In solitude, your thoughts breathe, your intuition sharpens, your soul exhales. Jung believed solitude was the space where individuation begins, where we strip away the masks and finally ask, "Who am I?" without the audience. You've probably felt pressure to be more out there, to network, to stay connected, to show up for things that don't nourish you. But every time you tried to force it, something inside you pulled back. Not out of fear but out of wisdom. Because your path doesn't require a spotlight, it requires clarity. And you find that not in crowds but in stillness. You're not missing out, you're tuning in, and while it may seem like everyone else is speeding ahead making noise, being seen you're doing something rarer, you're becoming, slowly, deeply, authentically. You'd rather take the long road alone than the fast track to somewhere you don't belong. And that's not isolation, that's integrity. It's why your solitude doesn't feel heavy, it feels holy, a place where you reconnect with your vision, your voice, your inner compass. Others may misunderstand it. They might say you're distant, withdrawn, even antisocial. But let them speak, you know something they don't. The most powerful work often happens in silence. Many of the greatest minds, Einstein, Jung, Kalla, walked the same path. They weren't hiding, they were listening. So if you've ever felt guilty for choosing solitude, release that now. The genius within you isn't found through noise or validation. It's forged in quiet, in stillness, in the sacred space where you finally get to meet yourself. And in that meeting, everything begins. You've never been one to settle inside a fixed version of yourself. The words, "This is just who I am," have never felt like home to you, because deep down, you know you are not a finished product, you are a process. A living, breathing evolution. While others cling to identity like a shield, you treat it like a river meant to flow, to shift, to renew. You are not afraid of change. You are afraid of staying somewhere that no longer feels alive. Carl Jung called it individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming fully yourself, not once, not in a single moment of clarity, but again and again, through shedding old skins, outdated beliefs, roles that no longer fit. And you've done that, maybe quietly, maybe painfully, but you've done it. You've stepped out of relationships, jobs, friendships, not because they were all bad, but because they no longer match the rhythm of your becoming. You don't fear the unknown as much as you fear false certainty. You'd rather be lost in transformation than stuck in comfort. You reinvent not to impress, but to stay honest with who you're becoming. Your closet holds not just clothes, but versions of you. Each chapter, each layer has taught you something new. And every time you step into the next one, it's not because you're confused, it's because you're listening, deeply, intuitively, to the pull of your own soul. That alone is rare. While others repeat themselves in loops, you spiral upward. You're not seeking perfection, you're seeking alignment. And each time you fall apart, you rebuild something even truer. Something even more you. That's not instability, that's expansion. So, if you've ever been told you're inconsistent, too complicated, never satisfied, smile, not because it's true, but because they don't understand the fire inside you. You're not here to stay the same. You're here to become who you were meant to be. Own revelation, one brave change at a time. You've probably noticed it. People stop mid-sentence when you enter a room. Strangers tell you their life stories without knowing why. Friends say they feel safe around you, even when you've said almost nothing at all. You don't try to be magnetic, you simply are. Not because of your appearance, or your voice, or your titles, but because of your presence. You carry something still, something felt, something deep. And people don't always know how to name it, but they feel it. That's the quiet gravity of inner truth. Carl Jung spoke of the self as the center of the psyche, full integration of all we are and all we could be. When you begin to walk toward that self, when your inner and outer lives begin to align, something subtle but powerful shifts. You don't need to advertise your worth, you radiate it. Not with arrogance, but with groundedness. Your presence becomes an anchor, not a performance. It's why people come to you without knowing what they want, why they linger in your energy. It's not what you do. It's who you are when you're not trying to be anyone. Even your silence speaks. Even your stillness holds weight. You might think you're just observing, just listening, but others feel seen around you. You've become a mirror they didn't know they were looking for. And here's what makes it beautiful. You're not trying to be impressive, you're just being real. And that's more rare than talent, more magnetic than charm. In a world addicted to noise, your depth is a frequency only the brave can tune into. You make people pause not because you demand attention, but because you remind them of something they forgot. Stillness, honesty, soul. So, if you've ever wondered why people are drawn to you but struggle to articulate it, stop wondering. That mystery isn't an accident, it's essence. And essence doesn't need explanation, it just needs to be felt. And you, without even meaning to, are already doing that. There are moments, maybe more than you've ever said out loud, when you hold back. You shrink your ideas, you soften your words, you dim your excitement. Not because you doubt yourself, but because you've seen what happens when you don't. The raised eyebrows, the awkward silences, the comments masked as jokes. You're so intense. You think too much. You always go too deep. So you learn to package your brilliance in safer shapes. You become palatable, acceptable, smaller. But here's the truth. Your fear of being too much didn't come from being wrong. It came from being surrounded by people who weren't ready. And that isn't your fault. Some people don't know how to hold the weight of truth. Some haven't faced their own depth, so when you show them yours, they flinch, not because you're overwhelming, but because you're a mirror. And what they see isn't always comfortable. Carl Jung taught that what we repress doesn't disappear, it becomes shadow. It waits in silence, growing heavier with time. So every time you downplay your insights, every time you withhold your brilliance to make others feel more at ease, you're not protecting them, you're betraying yourself. And the price of that betrayal is steep. You begin to doubt what once came naturally. You question the very parts of you that were never wrong to begin with. But here's the miracle. Your too muchness is actually your gift. Your deep thoughts, your bold truths, your sharp perceptions, these are the marks of a soul that refuses to live on the surface. Don't water that down. Don't apologize for depth in a world that thrives on shallow. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to awaken. And yes, that might make some people uncomfortable. Let it. The ones who can meet you there, they're the ones worth keeping. You are not too much. You are exactly enough for the life you were born to live. You've spent years thinking something was wrong with you, that your emotions were too loud, that your ideas were too weird, that your silence made you seem distant, your presence too intense. You've second-guessed your way of seeing, your hunger for meaning, your refusal to settle. But let's stop here, right here, and tell the truth. You were never too sensitive. You were never too curious. You were never too intense. You were just too brilliant for a world that forgot how to see. That genius you've been waiting for, that sense of greatness you hoped would arrive someday in the form of recognition, or clarity, or permission, it's already here. It's already you. It always was. Not the loud, celebrated kind, but the quiet, relentless kind, the kind that notices, questions, feels, creates, evolves, the kind that doesn't need a stage to be real, just space to breathe. Carl Jung didn't define genius as perfection, he defined it as wholeness. The ability to bring together every part of yourself, the shadow and the light, the depth and the fire, the questions and the stillness, and live from that place with integrity. And that's what you've been doing all along. Even when no one clapped, even when you doubted, even when you didn't have the words for it yet. You don't need to become anything. You need to remember who you already are. So let this be the moment you stop asking for permission. Stop diluting your insight. Stop waiting to be chosen. You were born chosen. Now it's your turn to choose yourself. And if this message stirred something in you, if you saw your reflection in these words, don't keep it inside. Comment below. Share the signs that hit home. Tell your story, because someone else is waiting to see themselves in it too. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Not just for another video, but for a reminder. This is a space where depth is welcome, where your truth is safe, and where your hidden genius finally gets to breathe. You are not broken. you are becoming. And that becoming is the most brilliant thing of all. This story was intense. But this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.